welcome
Thank
to Unusual Attitude. So this is a bit of a captivating broadcast where we explore the extraordinary lives of individuals, showcasing their unique talents and professional accomplishments. But this particular series, you are my inaugural guest for the Women of Power and Influence. And this is where we're looking at trailblazing executives like yourself, women who have been reshaping the corporate landscape and sort of understanding their journey, their influence, and also we'll explore a little bit of what advice you might have, for women that are just starting out in the corporate environment. Like, how do they follow a similar path? But my first question for you is, who is Sadie Bell?
Ooh, wow. So thank you. Thanks for having me in this series. And I mean, who am I? I am, I always say, a thinker, a doer, a mover, and a shocker. And this was kind of stolen from my undergrad, where Wichita State University is where I went to undergrad. And that was their slogan when I came in. And I really love it because it stuck to me and it's a part of who I am. I'm an innovator. I'm a different type of thinker. And I find that when I show up authentically as me, everything is a joke, although I joke seriously. So I like to have fun. I'm the daughter of two preachers or pastors, so I always have really good jokes, especially about PKs. I love being a thinker, a doer, a mover, and a continuous shocker. And in my education, I've been a Wildcat twice at the University of Arizona, and also a little bit of time at Kansas State University. Both mascots were Wildcats. So I always think I have my wild side, and I have my foundation, which is my family. So that's who I am.
Let's interesting, the family background. Let's explore that a little bit. How does that manifest itself in your family setting? But then let's draw it into your personal and professional life outside of family. But starting with the family, how do you view that history?
I view it positively. My name is, and you have to make a promise not to call me short versions of my name. Sure. But my name is Sadie Lucinda Bell Omoniyi. And my first name and my middle name came from my grandmothers. And so I think a part of my identity is I'm a unifier. And when I was born, they were like, we got to name her after one of our grandmothers. And both of them were around. And so they chose to name me after both of them. And one of my grandmothers, she came from Mississippi. And she was a sharecropper. She lived to be about 103 years old. And she said when she came out of Mississippi, she needed to get away from this oppressive nature. So it was one step away from slavery. And she moved her and her family and her sister's children to Kansas for a better start in a new life. And she instilled that in us, looking for, she said, I believe I'll run on and see what the end will be. And she sees her life running in the life that she lived, in the life of her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren. And she really put that in me. And the spirit of excellence in that, hey, there was a time when in this great country, which I love, doesn't really matter what's inside of you, what's driving you, what's powering you. The color of your skin really dictated what you could and couldn't do. And it was unfortunate. But as times have changed, some of those systems, they haven't. But many of them have. And being able to capitalize on the freedoms I have and the virtues I have about making sure we don't continue slavery in other forms really becomes a part of my makeup and part of my dad's speech as a pastor. Freedom through Jesus Christ, if you will, and freedom to really make choices to be who you want to be. And that resonates with me. But I think about excellence for all, so it's not just in that way. I just have an understanding that sometimes the perceptions of who I am before I get an opportunity to say so or do so can sometimes already be determined for me before I walk into a room. And that's helped me in my career. I typically don't try to think that, oh, someone's judging me because of the color of my skin or my femininity or whatever it is. But it's there. It's the last thing I look at. But I always think in my head, just be you. Be confident. Be courageous. Think about the people who are around you and how you want to achieve the American dream. And I want to have all of the privileges that come along with that. And I think that's something that my grandmother, with an S, instilled in me. My parents continue to do so. And I want my children to have. I have a mixed home. I'm a Black American or an American, and my husband's Nigerian. And so my children don't speak Yoruba, which is sad, and I'm really bad at it. But I want them to see the cultures we come from, and then we have our own culture at home, which really mixes the two of them. And it's helpful to know where you came from. And having that grounding really, really motivates me. It humbles me, honestly, because I know where I came from. And I know that things haven't always been easy. And no matter how hard they are for me, I always know it was harder for someone else. And I can carry, I'll call it pride and not the burden of continuing to elevate my experience and the experience of my family now and forward.
What is the value of knowing where you've come from? So you've been, we'll call you a Midwesterner, right? Sort of
Yes.
Born and raised, but obviously you have roots in the South.
Yes.
You work in Houston, live and work in Houston now, which can be very different. The extended history of your family, from different parts of the world, but how does that play into your value system? The knowing where you came from, like, tell me more about that, because I think that is an inherent problem with a lot of people is they don't connect with their roots. They don't embrace their history, good or bad. And to be able to create a value system, I think you have to understand your roots and at least be honest with yourself. And I'm Polish. My family is from Poland. I'm only second generation in this country. My grandparents came here as teenagers. Very, very new world. Settled in Philadelphia. But I lived in 14 states and 3 countries growing up. I'm a military brat. And so I got to see a lot of the world and really understand the different value systems of where, and I visited Poland, where I came from. How important is that to not only mentally connect with your roots, but physically connect with it?
It's invaluable and extremely important. I've lived in several states and mostly moving around for work. Either my husband, we take turns of who's driving us to which location. So I've lived in the Southwest as well. And he told me at some point, he's like, your horizon's not big enough. I came from Nigeria when I was a teenager, and he's telling me all about his experiences, and his father's an architect and, an official and what they do. And we went and visited their hometown when his father passed away, and I got to see the places that his father's father built. And I got to see the beautiful, beautiful version of Nigeria and that history. And I see who he is and why he is. And in that same way, coming from the very small or very large town of Wichita, Kansas, I have, the Dorothy shoes that I can click to go home anytime I want. I have the vantage point of an agricultural landscape. I have the view of what it was like to migrate or move from the South, from a very oppressive place at the time to a more progressive place. And as I move from place to place or experience, I've done implementations in Australia and Canada. I opened some digital centers in China and Germany and Barcelona in Spain. And so as I see and learn about other cultures, it helps me to think about my own culture, the one that I'm creating, both in my job at work, but at home with my children. I wish I spoke other languages. I do try, but I won't. I'm not fluent in any. And my family, at least on my husband's side, has a lot of fun with what I'm able to grapple or understand or say back, quite frankly. But all of those pieces really play into the story or the puzzle. And it creates also experiences. And those experiences live differently because of that backward look. I wish that I knew more about my lineage on my mother and father's side, but because of the spirit of the whole slave trade, it's lost at some point. And I don't know where in Africa my descendants came from or other places, because we definitely have a European background as well. And so knowing that, I think would be a little more helpful. But what I do know helps give me the spirit of we continue. And we go on and we achieve more, and that it's important to leave something, that heritage, for the next generation, because we're not forever. And so I think that helps. And being in Texas, I've been called a wild, wild Westerner, which I think is pretty cool, except I'm like, I haven't really lived in Texas that long. So I think some people are having a way of telling me that my thoughts and ideas may not be, the typical ones they're used to hearing, but I also think that that's what makes me unique. Yep. And sometimes it's what's needed, just to shake it up a little bit, change it. Let's try something different. Let's explore the boundaries. Let's erase them. and try something else. And it may not work. You can probably tell from me, my risk barometer is there always. But it's open, and I'm willing to try things. I don't go to jail for anyone, but beyond that, I'm willing to try and test boundaries, and I think that's what makes life and work fun.
Well, what's interesting about that statement, testing boundaries, I wonder if, and ask the question some of our viewers and listeners may not know about you, is you're a mathematician. And I wonder how much of the risk boundary is really your ability to calculate risk so quickly because of how you think. But let's start with the math piece. I find this fascinating about you. And the reason why is because my son, who's 8, is brilliant at math. He's in 2nd grade, but he's doing 6th grade math already. Wow. And he's learning concepts and critical thinking skills through math that is well beyond even my ability at this point, like crazy good. But tell me, when did you first know that math was your thing?
Very early. My uncle on my mom's side was really good at math. My mom's very good at math, but she's like in accounting, and I don't really like that.
Love mom, but not the accounting part.
No, and my dad's favorite thing to say to me is like, do the math. And I'm like, okay, yeah. But I love mathematics even still to the day, even in the places where I struggled. I was in 2nd grade. My first memory is in 2nd grade, and we were doing math. And then in 3rd grade, I was really good at multiplication tables. And then in 4th grade, I was put in a 4th, 5th combination class. And the teacher's like, okay, you already know this math, so Sadie, go over in a corner and learn whatever you want to. And so I started doing autonomous learning and learning on my own. And flipping the page, patterns just started to make sense to me. And so math was really easy. And I don't know that it was about learning it, but I like learning. And so it was exploring, and so I wasn't really grasping it to do anything with it. It was just, I loved it. I had a lot of fun with it. I was really good at it. And I was taking high school geometry, I think in 6th grade. Literally, they bussed us over to the high school, a group of us, and we would take the next level up. And then when I was in high school, I took my sophomore year. I was taking calculus at the university in Calc 2 and 3. And in my senior year, I was like, oh, what do I do with all this math? Because I don't really know what to do. I thought I'll be a teacher. And so my actual first career was in secondary education mathematics. And at 15, I taught my first math class to my high school peers and unders. as an exploratory class and internship with a very special teacher I had who allowed me to kind of erase boundaries. It was algebra. I was teaching algebra to high school students. And then that's how I picked my first career, because I didn't know what else you do with mathematics, which is why I think it's important to be exposed to many, many different types of things, although I also have a passion for teaching, a deep passion. And I reached that passion, all right, I understood that passion before I understood my passion for mathematics. So I was much younger when I started teaching Sunday school at my local church. And then I combined the two because I really like understanding how people think, why they think, and how I can help them think differently. And the part of that was thinking differently about mathematics, because a lot of people are afraid of it and they don't want to explore it, and they miss something because it's foundational. And so they don't want to go back and learn it, and it's hard and this kind of thing. And so I had a lot of fun really tapping into tutoring. Where did you get stuck? Some of my favorite courses to teach were remedial math. And so I taught high school math in public schools for a while. I taught in private schools and online in tandem with my digital transformation career until eventually it just got too tough to keep both of them going. But I get to explore both of those passions. I think in thinking, I don't really know. When I went to grad school, I got a degree in pure math, and I struggled, actually, for the first time with
For
mathematics.
our listeners, what is pure math?
Ooh, it's theory. So applied math, you can think about it as, if you want to do bioinformatics, you want to combine it with some kind of application, or combinatorics, or you want to be able to statistics, all of these kinds of things. Pure math is really thinking about theory and spheres and universes, and there's not very many numbers. There's lots of symbols, alpha, deltas, epsilon, balls that you can wrap things around, and could code and start it off that way.
Well, let's talk about work. We're building up to this point right now. So, what is it that you do here? Like, tell us about your day job. What's a day in the life of Sadie?
Yeah, so my current job, I am VP in HR at Hewlett-Packard Enterprises. I'm responsible for our people systems, digital experience, and intelligence teams. And I really like to say the infusion of artificial intelligence for the betterment or employee experience. And it's an amazing job. I love my team because we're really looking at this is not where I would have expected, to be perfectly honest, to grow into, but I see I fit. And I see I fit in a different way. We work on problems that people have. So prior to this role, I would see myself more as a digital transformation. So I did it with data and analytics, predictive analytics, looking at executive dashboarding and reporting, and what's the employee's experience or the user's experience getting this information and being able to use it. And then I went into IT, doing more core IT, end user services, facilities, all of this kind of thing. And then I got the opportunity to do digital transformation in manufacturing, which was my best, most fun job in the whole wide world. It was awesome. And because I got to do digitalization at the cutting edge of technology, testing and erasing boundaries, really nice budget.
That doesn't hurt.
Doesn't hurt. And impact at the point of really a proof of concept and proof of value, and being able to pilot and put these things out in the field and seeing that, hey, we're taking people out of harm's way. I can send a drone up. I can attach a 360 camera on it. I can bring the data back and visual touch points and analyze the data and do artificial intelligence on it and get real results in real time. And eventually someone says, hey, Sadie, you need to go on and do something else. How about HR? And I must tell you.
Was it almost a visceral reaction, like, ooh, HR?
It was. In fact, I was just honest. I was like, let me just tell you, I'm a scientist. I'm a mathematician. And in college, all of the engineers were like, mathematicians aren't real scientists. And I'm like, yes, we are. Like, we're the best So this was already like a little touchy point for me. And then it's like HR, which is this soft science. What can I do there? And it was difficult for me to see. And so the first time they mentioned it to me, I said no. And then the second time they mentioned it to me, and so sometimes these don't become mentions.
Right.
They're like, hey.
Yeah. Voluntold,
yes,
as they say.
Don't you want to transform HR? And I'm like, well, what do you do over there? And I went in and I realized this is what I've always been doing. Every effort of digital transformation has really been to meet the employee where they are and transform how they live and work. And whether that's in a deep manufacturing site, getting you out of harm's way, or whether that's you sitting at your desk and using employee services and tools, or interacting in a virtual environment with AR, VR, whatever it is, or if it's in an HR, helping your onboarding experience, or transforming the culture. Or digitalizing the processes that happen in the background. This became something that I could see, and I love HR. And so I've been in HR for about 4.5 years, really transforming what it is and how we do, and I would say living on the edge of what the future of work will be going forward. And to me, that's transformational.
What is, in your view, with your experience, you have a very different lens than many people. I think because of the technology background, because of your work as a scientist, where is this all going? And that's the big question, especially the big talk. Let's steer it towards the AI piece. What are we in for in the next? Let's put a window on it, because you could draw a long window on this very easily. But let's just talk about maybe the next decade.
Yeah. So I think in the next decade, depending on your attitude toward the change, we're in for a massive ride. So Gen AI has come to the forefront, and it's become readily available to everyone, and they're playing with it, they're touching it. And we're going to see us grapple with how to use it and how we can have things that are guiding us, but really how the machine and the human interact together. And we're going to have this transformational fight for the next 3-4 years. And then you're going to see, because of the economy, the need, the acceleration of machines to do things faster than humans ever could, but the combination of the two making us the best we've ever been, you'll see the two of us win, not the machines, right? We'll win together, and we'll start to see work shift and change. And so one icon I saw was somebody sitting on the beach, like, this is the future of work. It is, kind of, because locationally you're not going to need to be in some of the places that you've been before, and COVID pushed us into that error and pushed us into the need to see that it's possible. And then Gen AI and the ability for machines to think and produce human-like results, both physically and artificially, right, mentally, is really going to push us into how we do work next. And so the skills you need to acquire as you're coming out of school, as you are entering the workforce, continuing in the workforce, are going to need to shift continuously, so that it'll be human and artificial intelligence in every job, including ones that we call transitional roles, like dark factories or dark food locations, where some of those jobs that were available to high schoolers and transitional workforce are going to start looking very, very different in the next decade.
Interesting you talk about that, because one of the things that I've talked about was those jobs disappearing. Because I started my, we'll call it professional career. I worked in a fast food restaurant like many young people, in the early 1980s. This was our path, or entry point to the workforce. What happens when those jobs disappeared? I'm genuinely worried about that, because not everyone has the ability to, say, go right into university. Not everyone has the knowledge of who they want to be. They're still trying to figure out at a young age, and that was certainly my path. And so, having sort of the entry-level job gave me a sense of purpose and being, and helped me decide who I wanted to be as I was growing up. What happens when that's all replaced by artificial intelligence? Like, what do we say to young people who are very, very concerned, and they're concerned right now about this, about I don't have an entry point into the workforce?
That's a really, really, really good question, and I don't really have a direct answer, except to say, my teaching passion comes in here. I mean, you don't have to get a 4-year degree to learn how to use technology, to learn how to think about, hey, maybe Uber's not going to be around anymore in the way it was, and it's going to be autonomous cars.
Right.
And so maybe you need to think a little differently about investments paths so that maybe you own one of the cars that is moving on the road and still being able to monetize in that way so that you can drive life. And so fixing all of these machines are going to need repairing and continuous improvement. And so it's really the type of job that changes, and it's going to shift what that entry-level role looks like. It will be harder to get, but not impossible. And universities, JUCOs, community colleges, preparatory schools that were once teaching welding will now need to teach how to use the machine that welds, so forth and so on. And so some of those higher order skills will now become the minimum skills, and we'll be able to move them down in the continuum, if you will. So those jobs will not go away. They will just be redefined.
Do you think, as a woman professional in the workplace, in your career, have you seen the shift when we talk about work? And we've just talked about this sort of entry level, but you've now are running the full gamut.
Yeah.
You're no longer entry level at this point as an executive. When you look back on your career, has there been a shift in the way that you've been perceived as a Black woman from when you first started to where you are today?
That's such a good question, and I'm trying to find the political answer. So the perception is interesting. I remember, glass ceilings are being broken all the time, right? And I don't really like that analogy, but in any case, I think I work for a great company. I work for Hewlett-Packard Enterprises, and they treat me well. My thoughts and ideas are respected, but I also came into the company as an executive in the top, less than 1% of the company. And so when I say things, they have a different and profound impact. And so, yes, I'm perceived quite differently simply because of my level, right, as the vice president of the company. But coming up, I think this is it's always difficult. I was very good I was a teacher. So presenting and talking or explaining a very difficult concept simply became one of my superpowers I didn't know I had, but I've seen it kind of come out. And sometimes when I demonstrated that creativity or that power, the assumption was that my technical power can't possibly be there, because how can you have someone who understands deeply what's happening here, who's coded, who's run the platform, who's implemented, who can also talk? So I've seen that happen, and usually there's it has to be your front end, your front office, back office, and I get in trouble because I like to talk, obviously. So I've seen that play differently. I see it play differently even in rooms where I don't think it's necessary for me to speak up every time I'm in a room, but sometimes the impression is that if you don't say something in the first 10 minutes, then you haven't said anything and maybe you don't need to be in the room. And technology has helped with that, because I can say something with a heart in a digital room. I can put my comment in a chat room and state it. And then when somebody else says the same thing that I put there 10 minutes ago and claims it as authentically them, and I'm sure it was, right? I have the opportunity to then raise my hand, unmute, and say, yeah, so I mentioned that earlier, and I'm so glad that you did, because here's the next thing that we can do. And I found that, repositioning my voice in the room, I'm curious, laid back. If I think somebody else has a question, I'm okay to ask it, for them. But I've learned over time that sometimes the questions you ask also have an impression on who people take you as in the room. And that sometimes I used to stand up and I'd say, oh, 3 plus 5, I'm not really good at math. I don't know what it means. And people don't know my background. I'm pretty good at math. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So it's not true. It's just something I'm saying to lighten the room. But then I realized people believe me.
Yeah.
And so I need to sometimes project or let people know that I completely understand. And when I'm asking you what a flat file is, I'm not asking you because I don't know. I'm not asking you what's the definition of AI or Gen AI because I don't know. I might be asking because I want you to state where your thoughts are so that we can together move to another point. And so I've really had to rethink how I show up, especially as I've progressed along the management, senior manager, and executive levels in terms of shifting the perception. And some of those perceptions are innate because I'm a woman, because I'm a Black woman, and really understanding, hey, sometimes people are difficult to change, societies are difficult to change, but I can change and I can show up differently, still being authentically me. And I've used technology to really help me reposition myself in rooms when sometimes I'm disadvantaged because of my height, literally.
That's right. Yeah, you sometimes it's true. The chair only goes up so high. Sometimes the chair only for me goes so low. Here's
or the pitch of my voice.
Here's the last question.
Yes, sir.
If we think about your journey as a career, I think there's a lot of women that would look up to you and say, okay, what do I do now? Like, I'm just coming into this place. And I love the advice of be authentic, learn how to show up in authentic ways. I'm getting that message. You can still be you, and be able to communicate and get your voice out. Sometimes it's not, hitting someone over the head with your opinion. It's sort of taking their opinion in or their comment in, making it your own and repeating it back to them. And mirroring is a great technique for that. If you don't know mirroring, it's an awesome technique. You should learn it. But what is the advice for those women in the workforce today, especially Black women coming into the workforce today? What do you tell them?
I tell them that the workforce and the workplace needs you, especially in the field of technology, so don't shy away. As much as it's difficult for me, networking with a purpose, making real connections, driving value at every level in the way you can, firmly understanding what is the business I'm in, what do they do, what drives and what makes money for them, what's the culture, how do I fit into it, and how do I change it? I know these are like crazy things, and it's a lot, but if you know, hey, my company wants to change the way people live and work, and they want to do it through technology, great. So then you start to bring that down. How does it apply to the work I'm doing right now in my job? And when I'm talking to my leader, I'm doing my day job. What are some of the other things I can do to explore how I help you? And in every one of those connections, thinking about how you can help other people is how I've seen success in my career. And sometimes even today, folks don't believe when I come in and I say, what can I do for you, that I sincerely mean it. I just want to know how I can make your work easier and better. And I believe by doing that, I make my work easier and better, and it's always paid dividends. On the other side of that, you also have to project your successes and wins. Sometimes it's easy to think that because you've done it, people will recognize it, they will know it. They won't. They won't see it. People are typically self-centered, and they see themselves, and they don't see. And so you have to find ways to share your success, to share your story, and to share your value. And those happen in one-on-one engagements. They happen in presentations. They happen when you get involved in things outside of your day work, like some ERGs. I think that's a very good avenue to go in and start working and getting differentiated experience. In my personal experience, I came from not a business, right? The educational system. An autonomous learner, spatial and everything in different ways and directions, and bringing it back to a business presentation and a business proposal and how you do the next thing. were things I had to learn along the way. Get mentors, get sponsors, they're not the same, and find people that you can trust that can give you advice along the way. And every person is not the person who can give you advice for everything. So be strategic. I talked to Phil about AI. I talked to my mom about my personal issues, my dad about my shoe size, and don't get it confused. And I think if you can do those things, you can take charge of your career and you can direct it in any direction that you want to. So I advise them, get involved, stay involved, get active, and start to build your network of influence.
Sadie Bell, thank you for sharing your unusual attitude with us.
Thank you.